called him a matir. They called him a matir because he was matir all these different things. These things, he matir three things. So I don't want to get a bad reputation. I was matir the oil, but I don't want to be matir also the bread. And soon I'll be called a matir. You don't want to be called a makel. To get involved in if you want to be on the moetzes gedolei Torah or whatever it is, you don't want to get a reputation that you are lenient. Amalei Hasam Charlotte. So Rav Samloi, his assistant, said to him, I can say to Rab Samloi, he was also, even his assistant was also called a Rebbe, was a rabbi. We saw yesterday, he was quoted in Halacha. He says, there, Yosef Ishtreida was matter three things. Umar Sharachad, you're only matter one. What's your problem? Say, you still, what's your problem? They called him a matter because he did three. Three is always a sign like a chazaka, right? He did three things, but you're only matter one thing. Even if you're matter one more thing, the bread that I would like you to be matter, it's only two, not three. You're not going to be called a matir. You're only going to have two, not three. No. There was another thing that I was matter. That would be three. If I get to the pas, if I'm out to the pas, that would be three because there was another thing that I was matter. Not only was it matter the shemen, I was matter another thing. Mahi, what's that? When it comes to halacha of gittin, the Tanan, famous halachas of gittin, the man says, here's your get, he's going overseas, he's afraid he won't return, he doesn't want her to be an iguna or fall yibam to his brother. So he said, here's your get if I don't come back within 12 months. And then he died. Now there's a simple rule about gittin. You have to be alive to give a get. You can't give a get after you're dead. So here he says, here's your get if I don't come back after 12 months. So what's the halacha there? It's not a get. The Tanila, we learn about that. The rabbis were matter to get married. Mamra was saying, who are the rabbis saying? Who are these rabbis matter? It's the Bezdin that's matter the oil of the goyim. Who's that? That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, Rabbi's grandson that we've just talked about. So he was that. In other words, who was matter her to get married? The same bezin that's matter the oil. To Omar, knows what's the problem over here? Again, look at the lashon carefully. Here's your get if I don't come back within 12 months. When is the get? He didn't say me'achshav. He didn't say almanas. He said if I don't come back in 12 months, here's your get. Well, when he didn't come back in 12 months, he was dead. The get can't be chal then. It's like you give a get, so I don't be chal in 12 months. The guy died within the 12 months. He can't give a get. So therefore she falls hibam. Or she's in a guna, or whatever. You're not she wouldn't be in a guna because she divorced at that. She would be. He's already dead, right? But she would fall yibam. So if he didn't have any children, what's the idea over here of this Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, who was matter the shemen and he's also matter to get married? So he goes like abuse numbers. Why is there a zman on the get? Minotaur, you don't need a zman on a get a date. It doesn't be dated. What's the reason for the date? To show that he meant it to be chal from right now. That's why I put the date of today. I said in Achami, he said, here's your get if I don't come back within 12 months, but I dated it today, indicating that I want it to be chal from right now. That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion. You go like Rabbi Yossi. Again, he's called Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but we're not talking about Rebbe, who is the editor of the Mishnah, the famous Rebbe. This is his grandson, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Horelo, this is how he paskined that she can get married. V'lahodelo, kol shato. All the years of his life, the other rabbis were not motive to him. They said, because we're not sure. What does that mean? Zekitach imlo basi. Maybe he only went to divorce her afterwards. And afterwards, it can't be chal. And therefore, she would fall yibam. But Amri law, so what would they paskin? They would paskin that she needs chalitza in order to get married. Then she could marry a Kohen. But Amri law, kol siyata. Some say all his colleagues, his whole his whole group. It's either all his life or his groups. Amalei. Okay, so that was the second thing that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was matter. He was matter the oil, and he was matter her getting married, and he was afraid if he matter also the pas, he'd get a reputation as being a matir. Amalei Rabbi Lazar Lausaba. Rabbi Lazar said to some kisha, when you're matter her to get married right now, why? Because you said means from this date. If I don't come back, if he dies a month later, and he said in 12 months, if he dies a month later, he dies a day later. It gets chal from Lemafreya from when he wrote it. When you're matter, should we you matter to get married right now? The lawsi, because he's not coming back. What did he write? He said, if I don't come back within 12 months, I want it to be a get. Okay. Now when he dies, it's pretty well pretty much assume that he's not coming back, right? So can she get married? Can she get married immediately? Let's say he leaves on January 1st. Instead of, I won't come back by December 31st, I want it to be a get. He dies on January 2nd. Adam come and testified that he died. Could she get married right away? Or do you have to wait the 12 months? Because at the 12-month mark, when he doesn't come back, then the get's chalim afreya. That's the question that he raised. When you married him to marry, in other words, she doesn't have to go through Yibam because he definitely, I'm sorry, when you allow her to get remarried immediately without Yibam, why? Because it was a good get. Do you allow her to get married immediately on January 2nd? She was still lost because he's not coming back. Only after 12 months, when the conditions fulfilled. In other words, he said, if I don't come back within 12 months, what would Rabbi Yossi say? And Rabbi Yehuda, she gets divorced from January 1st, because that was the date on the get. He didn't say, I want it to be Chal January 1st. He didn't say Me'achshav. He didn't say Almanas. He didn't say L'mafreya. He didn't use any of those words. He just said, today's January 1st. If I don't go back within 12 months, I want you to be divorced. He died on January 2nd overseas, and they have a testimony to that effect. When can you get married? Can you get married on January 2nd? Because he's not coming back, or do you have to wait till the condition is fulfilled, which is on December 31st? When he doesn't show up on December 31st, then she's divorced, I'm afraid. When do you allow her to get remarried? So the Gemara says, you're asking me this kasha, so why are you asking me a kasha now? Because I joined with Rabbi Yehuda was mounting and married. But the Mishnah says, doesn't get, here's your divorce, your get from right now. If I don't go back December 31st, I want it to be chal from January 1st. Now he says specifically from now. He died in the middle of that time, January 2nd or May 1st or whatever. Have a get, right? Is it have a get? The kind let tonight. It's a get from. It's a good get. You don't say that it's a get lachamisa because he said it should be chal from January 1st. He said me'achshav. So you could ask the same question on the Mishnah. Is it a get now from January 1st and on January 2nd or May 1st or June 20th, whenever you find out that he died, can she get married right away? The law because he's not coming back. Can only get married on December 31st when at that point the condition is fulfilled. What's the condition? If he doesn't come back by December 31st. December 31st passed and he didn't come back. It should be a chal. Only then she can make tonight. So why don't you ask the kasha on the Mishnah? What are you asking me on our psak over here in this case of Rezeget Imlo Basi? You could ask the kasha on the Mishnah. Elamishum Dahavas Ba Minyana. You were included in that group that was mater here to get married by Imlo Basi. Imlo Basi when I come back. So I'm asking you, when are you mater from? You hold that the date is it's as if the date is there, it's as if it said me'achshav. So I'm asking you, when is that chal? Is it chal? Do you let her get married immediately, or do you have to wait till the conditions fulfilled? So that question is not really answered. All he's saying is that she's really divorced from back then. Obviously, if she got married to somebody else in between after there was part of that, she wouldn't be chayav for an adulterous marriage, right? Because the guy definitely died, right? The only question is it a get, right? Is it a get? Or if it's not a get, then she would be a Yavam L'Shuk. But as we said yesterday, when you asked the kasha yesterday, Yavam L'Shuk is not Chayav Misa. Right? Amar Abaya. Hakomodim, everybody's moda, even Rabbi Yossi, and would be Rabbi Yehuda, if he says, listen, I'm going to get divorced when the sun comes up, when the sun comes out of its sheath. He says, when the sun comes out. Let's say he died overnight, get lachamisa wouldn't be a good get because he died before the get could be chal. He said, I want this to be a get from tomorrow at noon or from tomorrow when the sun comes up. And he died overnight. He has to have yibum. There's no get there because the get is that you can't have a get after he died. Let's say he says, I'm giving you a get on the condition that the sun comes up tomorrow. That me'achshav kama, he says, I'm giving it to you now on the condition. When the condition is fulfilled, to get from certainly the condition, if he died at night, it's a tonight, the get mechaimu. It's a get mechaim. In other words, it gets chal the day before when he said it. Ravuna has a general rule. When he would say on the condition, it's if you say for right now. When I say I'm doing this to you, I'm giving you this gift on the condition that so-and-so happens. That means I'm giving it to you right now on the condition that the condition is fulfilled. It means from right now. Where's the machlokas between, let's say, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi on the one hand and the other rabbis? When he says, if the sun comes up. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, like Rabbi Yossi, holds like Rabbi Yossi, look at the date. If the date's written today, obviously I meant that it should be chaf right now, but like It's as if I said from today or me'achshav, Kamei Yomi Mesi, Kamei Achshav Mesi. That's because it's the date there. For Rabbanan, less Rabbi Rabbanan don't Rabbi Yossi, probably Kizakitach in Mesi, Greda. It's as if he just says, oh, I'm giving you this get if I die. All right, so if I die, so you can't give a get after he dies. So therefore, it's not a get at all. It's not a get at all. Rabbi Yossi's halacha was by a person, let's say, giving a gift of real estate to his son. He's giving a gift of real estate to his son, and he didn't say from today, but he put a date of today in there. So you could say, he means to say, look, the payros I'm going to eat as long as I'm alive, but I'm giving you the karka. So you can make a differentiation between different parts of the karka, the fruits versus the land itself, as opposed to the case of the get. It's either one or the other. Either you go by the date of the get or you don't go. So that's what we say over here, that even Rabbi Yossi would be moda, because in a case like this where he said, when it comes up, right? Everybody's moda, if I say I'm giving you a get when the sun comes up, and he died overnight, well, he said when the sun comes up. He didn't mean me'achshav. He didn't say that at all. So you can't interpret it as two different ways. It's either when the sun comes up, meaning when the sun comes up, you're going to get a get, not before. All right, says the Gemara now. So that's the issue of Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, who was being marked to the get. In other words, in the Mishnah, when we said Rebbe based Dino Hitir Shemi, we don't really mean the regular Rebbe that we mean Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. We mean his grandson, Rebbe based Dino Hitiro. Rashi over here, right before the wide lines in our Gemara, still in the narrow lines, right before the ones, Rebbe Nasi, Ben Beno Shal Rebbe Haya, Horashi Muteris Linase. That's when we say Rabbi Yehuda Nasi really means Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. Gufa, we mentioned before that Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said, I don't want to be called a permitting bezdin. I don't want to be called too liberal, too lenient. Why? Because look at Yossi ben Yoezer, who was matir three things, and they called him a matir. Gufa. Hey, Rabbi said, oh, he gave testimony about a locust, the chain that's tahor, meaning that it's kosher, also, and that the drink, any drink, whether it's blood, water, whatever stuff is in the Beis Hamikdash's kitchen, where they, or literally it's not a kitchen, whatever, where they shecht, etc., that also, that all those liquids are not tamei. And if a person who touches a dead body, that he's tamei. How is that a heter? We'll see. We'll talk about it. They called him Yosef the Mater. Mayel comes. So what do we mean by this kind of a locust? What's the story over there with the locust? Is it that there's a machlokes about it? Rapapa Amar Shushiva. It's a kind of long-headed locust. There's different kinds of locusts. Grasshoppers. We know, people know that if you happen to know the right kind of grasshopper, you can eat it, right? But you have to know what it is. Rapapa Amar Shushiva. That's kind of it's a long-headed locust. Rav Barami Amar Mishumedulah. It's an animal that's susvil. It's a short-headed locust. Rapapa Amar Shushiva. He says Shiva. So what's the machlokes here between Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Shreda and the others, and there are other rabbis, his colleagues who argue with him. Right? If you have a long-headed grasshopper, can that be kosher? Marsav Rosh Orach Aser. That's the other rabbis. Marsav Rosh Orach Mutter. He holds it's Mutter. So that's how Rapapa, who says that this Ayol Kamsa is a long-headed grasshopper, says that that's the machlokas. Yossi ben Yoezer Istreda held that a long-headed grasshopper is kosher. The other rabbi said not. Susvil, that it's a different kind of grasshopper, a short-headed one. Everybody agrees that a long-headed grasshopper is usher, is considered treif, what we call treif, not kosher. The other simonim, there are simonim of grasshopper. Some of the simonim, it depends on if he has ankles, how many breaks, how many joints he has on the feet. But also one of the things with simonim to make it kosher is that its wings have to cover the body. So what's the issue over here? The susvil has a short head. So in terms of the head, that's not a problem. But in terms of the wings is the issue. Where the wings cover the body, but it's not so evident. You really got to force it. It covers most of the body, but it only covers the full body, I guess, if it's moving in, if it's contorted in a certain way. Marsav Ruba Kol Dubin, and all you need is a robe. As long as it covers most of the body, it's good enough. Marsava Ruba the Minkabin, you need a robe. It's got to be evident, very clearly evident to the naked eye, that the wings cover most of the body. And therefore, they would say that the susvil, the other source would say that it doesn't, since it's not clearly evident, it's not kosher. whereas Yosef ben Yoezer straight holds that it's kosher even if it's not so evident, as long as it covers the body. Meaning it, you could, if you really look at it carefully, you could realize that it covers the body. So that's the first thing that Yosef ben Yoezer was matir, was this kind of a grasshopper. The second thing was that the all the liquids, the liquids in the Beis Hamikdash are tar. Rav Amar Dechein Mamish that it's really tar. Shmuel Amar Dechein Motamei Acherim. It's only tar from, it can't be matami something else. Aval tumas atzmon yeshman, that they are tummy themselves. What's the machlokes here? Rav Amar Dechein Mamish Ksavar tumas mashkin d'Rabbanan. He holds that tumas mashkin is only d'Rabbanan. That midaraisa b'chigas Rabbanan tumah mashkin the alma of mashkin based b'chaylo gazer. They were only, in other words, there is no tumah of mashkin at all midaraisa. That liquids don't become tummy automatically. You know, it's like you have mashkin couple tumah, they don't become tummy at all. Rashi says tumas mashkin Rabbanan sefsach marchinin, but if called mashka sheyesh go mashani ma'itama. Yeah, actually that's only that liquids are a machshir. They prepare something else to become tummy. If you have a food that wasn't touched by liquid, then it can't become tummy. It's got to be mushal kabel tumah. But the liquid itself is not tummy. That's the first opinion. Rav says Dechen Mamish Tzavatum Mashkin Rabbanim V'chi Gazer Rabbanim Tumas Mashkin De'alma But Mashkin makes B'chayil Gazer Rabbanim U'Shmuel Amar Dechen Mil Tamei Acherim. Shmuel says no. Liquids themselves are tummy midaraisa. But tumas datzman yeshman k'savar tumas mashkin daraisa. They are tummy, but they're not capable of being tummy something else. All right, l'tamei acherim. So what does he say here? Aval tumas datzman yeshman k'savar tumas mashkin daraisa. L'tamei acherim is only rabbanan. This that the liquids can be mitame something else. That's only if they themselves are tummy. That's rabbanan. He goes rabbanan b'mashkin the alma. They were only goes there what that liquids can be mitame something else. Were regular mashkin made b'chayil goes. They weren't goes in the base mix. This was the second thing that was matter. Either it was matter that he says all these mashkin are tar themselves, according to Rav. According to Shmuel, it says no, that they are tummy. That they are tummy is a daraisa, but that they could be mitame something else. That's only rabbanan, and they weren't goes in the base of mikdash. The third thing that Yossi ben Yoezer East Trader was matir, and for which he was called that pushed him over. Once you have three, like you're a chazaka that you're matir, that you're a permitter. Third thing was that if you touch a dead body, you're tamei. But Carly Yosef now the Gemara says, what do you mean? Yosef Asrami boile. He shouldn't be called Yosef who's a matir. He's a Yosef who forbids, right? He disqualifies because he said that if you touch a dead body, you're tamei. So that's number one. But what do you mean he made this halacha daraisi? We all know that. Everybody learns the Torah. You learned, and we just had in Chukas the rules of touching a dead body. Daraisi dafsiv v'chol sheiga al pnei asada. If you touch a b'chol cherev obemeis, if you touch a knife or a sword that touched the dead body, or you touch the body itself, you're tamei. So what's going on over here? What do you mean? He was matame this, and you called him a matir. And number two, what was he? What was he? He wasn't the one who asered this. It was Minatorah. So the answer is daraisa, the Yaakov tamei, the Yaakov Torah. Minatorah. Listen to this. Minatorah. Only a person who touched the dead body is tamei. But if you touch that person while he was touching a dead body, you were tahor. Ba'asuinu, and they came along and said v'gazer, and they made Xera. I feel the Yaakov also. That a person who touches a dead body while Reuben touched Shimon while Shimon was touching a dead body, he is also tamei like him for 7 days. And he came along and he said, no, that it's like we go like what's in the Torah, the Yakr which is in the Torah, which only person touched a dead body, you're a tamei. We say touch a dead body or oil or whatever. If you're in contact with a dead body, then you're tamei. But if you touch somebody else who was in contact, you're not tamei. Says the Gemara, Yaakov was also namido raisa. What do you mean that the other rabbi said that that Reuben who touched Shimon who was touching a dead body they were gozer on that? That's also minatorah. D'chsiv b'chol asher yiga b'boa tamei yitma. Whatever the tamei person touched, the tamei person who touched the dead body, whatever he touches, including another person, would also be yitma. And Rashi says yitma sounds like he'll be tamei all for 7. He'll also be tamei for 7. It's mash b'shivas yom gestam tumas meis. So that's also minatorah. What do you mean over here? You're trying to say, how was Yosei ben Yoezer Ish Streda? Why was he matir? Why was he called a matir? Because he said, no, don't go that far. just go with the simple halach in the Torah that if you touch a dead body, you're tamei for 7 days. If Reuben touched Shimon, who was touching a dead body, he's not tamei for 7 days. The other rabbi said the rabbi said no, even Reuben would also be tamei. That was Xera. Now the Gemara says, what do you mean it's Xera? It's in the pasuk also. Not only is Shimon who touched a dead body tamei, but Reuben who touched Shimon while Shimon was touching the body is also tamei, right? No, Mishmei Marzutra, Rav Nachman, the rabbis in front of Rava said this. In the name of Marzutra, Rav Nachman, the Omer Mishmei Rav Nachman, notice, he said this in front of Rava, who said that they said in front of Rava this rule, in the name of Marzutra, the son of Rav Nachman, who said in the name of Rav Nachman. Rava's going to complain about this later on. That's why I'm telling you that they said this answer for Rava, and they said in the name of Nachman, the Oraisa, the Akabikov, Bichiburan, Tumas Bichiburan, Midaraisa, the Yakub Bichiburan, Tumas Shiva. If you touch somebody, if Reuben touched Shimon while Shimon was touching another dead body, Reuben is also coming for 7 days. Shelo Bichiburan, but if Reuben touched Shimon not while Shimon was touching a dead body, after Shimon touched a dead body, then Reuben touched Shimon, then it's only Tumas Erev. It's only tummy for 1 day. You touch a person who has that's called a Tomei mace, right? A mace is called Aviyah Vasa Tuma. A Tomei mace is an Avatum, a person who touched a dead body. And if you touch that person, you're only Tomei for 1 day until sundown after you go to the mikvah. Basu Inu, and they came along, and they came along and they said, the other rabbi said, no, if Reuben touched Shimon, even after Shimon was touching the body, Shimon was not touching the dead body anymore, but Reuben touched Shimon, also you're Tomei Shiva, 7 days. And Yosef ben Yosef came along and said, no, let's just go with the Torah, right? Let's go with the Torah. What? That only if you touch a dead body, or you touched Shimon who was touching a dead body while he was touching the dead body, then you're tamei, but otherwise you're not. Right? That was how they quoted the name of Rav Nachman. So according to this, everybody agrees though that if you touched a Shimon while Shimon was touching the dead body, you are also tamei. Where do we see this in the Torah? These different laws. The Raisamai, the Chivit says Hanageh, but Mesa Chol Nefesh Adam, but tamei Shabasem. If you touch a dead body, tamei for 7 days. If you touch that tamei person, you're also tamei, which sounds like maybe also 7 days. And then it says a person who touched that person is only tamei till the evening. Okay, so are you tamei if you touch a person who touched a dead body? You touch that's called the tamei mace. You touched him. Are you tamei for 7 days or for 1 day? Okay, so depends. If you touch Shimon while Shimon was touching the dead body, then you're tamei 7 days. If you touch Shimon after Shimon was no longer touching the dead body, then you only tamei for 1 day. Then you only tamei for 1 day. But that's the idea here. But the according to the way they quoted Rav Nachman, they said they were gozer. Even if Reuben touched Shimon after Shimon was not touching a dead body, it's coming for 7 days. Comes along. Yosef ben say no, that's not the case. Yosef ben says no. Daraisa. What does it mean daraisa? You only come for 7 days if you touch a dead body or if you touch a person while he was touching the dead body. That's what. But otherwise, you're not tamei. So therefore, when he said that when Yosef ben Yosef was his third heter, that he said the Yaakov Lamesa Masav, that means you're only if you touch the dead body or you touch somebody who was touching a dead body. However, Rava objected to this quote in the name of Nachman. Oh, Rava, did I not tell you lo tisli be buke sirki Rav Nachman? Did I not tell you not to hang empty bottles on Rav Nachman? In other words, you're quoting things that he didn't really say. You're going too far. We don't know if that's really what he meant. In other words, we don't know that he said that if you touch the person who's touching a dead body, you're also tamei for 7 days. And otherwise, he made that difference between Yosef ben Yezer and his other rabbis. Rav Nachman said a different thing. Rav Nachman said, "Safek tuma b'shus rabim hiter lehen." Rav Nachman said that you know what he was matir when he say over here. You know what Rav Nachman said about Yosef ben Yezer? He said that a safek tuma b'shus rabim was mutter. We have a famous klal. Safek tam b'shus yochid is tamei. Safek tam b'shus rabim is tar. Where do we learn it from? From Sota. Sota is called a tamei. She's called tamei. Now it's only a suffix, right? We don't know if she committed adultery or not. And where did she do it? She did it obviously in a private place in Rosh Hashanah. Nobody does that in Rosh Hashanah. So Nachman said, you know what? Yosef ben Yosef was matter. Safek to Rosh Hashanah, B'Shus Rabim, he was matter that. So the Gemara, it's not this whole complicated case, touching a person, touching this person, touching that person. How are you telling me? You tell me 7 days for 1 day? No. He just said a suffix comes just around Mesitalan. So the Gemara, what do you mean he was matter? That Allah we just learned from Sota. Masot Rishis Yochid, Aftuma Rishis Yochid. Tum is also only Rishis Yochid. Right? Only Rishis Yochid, not Rishis Rabbin. Rabbi Yochanan said, halacha may more in Cain. That's talking the halacha in the Torah that we learn from Sota. That the halacha is something comes just Rabbin is Torah. However, we don't paskin that we don't paskin that way publicly. In other words, we always say go l'chomer. We don't want to be matter too many things because if we said comes just Rabbin is mutter, so people will be makel when it comes to tumah. Yosef ben Yezer came along and said, he paskin la halacha. That suffix Tamshus Rabbin is Torah, paskined it publicly, and that's why he was called a matir. He was called a makel because he said it publicly, and it wasn't really till that time. They didn't. That's the halacha. Privately, they could paskin that way, but they wouldn't paskin it publicly, so that people shouldn't make a kula. Tanya mihachi, Rabbi Omer, koros noatzlahem. In other words, you see, there's also this brisa that when we talk about Yosef ben Yezer, what was he matir? He said, "You're matir touching his body." No, koros noatzlahem. He plucked poles down in the ground. In other words, he was trying to help the people and say, look, if you're tamei b'shusiyach. By the way, this law is not only about touching a dead body, any suffix of tamei. If you touch the sheretz, anything like that, that concept we learn out. Obviously, Sot is not talking about a dead body.
In other words, I'm touching a vase, someone else is touching me. Does that
What's the halacha about that? I don't know. But he's mashma from Rav Nachman. Maybe Rav Nachman didn't say it, but that's what he says. It's mashma from the Rambam Seichel here. The Raisa Yaakov b'chiburin. If you're touching a person while he's touching a dead body, then you're also tummy for 7 days. That could be right. Certainly, if you're in the same room, because in the same room, you're in the same room anyway with them. Meaning, what Yosef ben Yezer was not talking about the concept of chiburin or not. He was talking about the Savakam Shesarabim was matzah for the tzibur. Ad kan Shesarabim, ad kan Shesyochim. He also came to Rav Yanai when he came for Rav Yanai Amalahu Hamaya Beshiksa the Benahara. There's plenty of water in the river over here. Zilut follow. In other words, said if you have a suffix, if you're tamei or not, tamei Shesarabim or not, don't go with that halacha Savakam Shesarabim Asar. Go to the mikveh, to remove all doubts. Right? They didn't want to be making one. So you see, Rabbi Yosef ben Yezer was makel, and he said no. Sometimes Shesarabim is tar, and that was his kula. All right. The next Gemara is talking about shlokos. Shlokos means something is overcooked. Really, this whole Gemara is now going to be talking about the concept of bishul akum, a big problem that exists even in today's world. Right? Pas and shemen. We said goyish oil. People are makel, especially if it's pas palter and there's no other bread and you're in Alaska or whatever, and it's kosher. Obviously, you have to make sure it's kosher ingredients. But the reason for these isurim were presumably because of Xera. Even Daniel, who goes there, was Xera. It wasn't a Torah that it's not kosher, or that it's avodah zarah, or anything like that. Question is that you shouldn't come to be close with them, eat their food, marry their daughters, etc. Right? And then we said shlokos. Shlokos are cooked stuff. And this is the concept of bishul akum. One of the rabbis made Xera in order, again, to stay away from goyim. You shouldn't come to intermarry. So they said you shouldn't have their cooked food. Now, the cooked food, as we'll see, is there are two basic exceptions. It's only for something that's served on what's it called shulchan malachim, something that would be served at a royal banquet, at a wedding. We're not talking about the regular grub that we eat every day, not that stuff. And also, only if it cannot be eaten raw, it's got to be cooked. So something that's cooked. So how do they get around it today? The Sfardim are very makbid about this. The Sfardim are not makel and say, well, as long as the Jew turned on the oven, it's okay. And we're not talking about kashrus over here. Kashrus, there's ashgach, the food is kosher. We're talking about it's 100% glad kosher. The issue is, can you eat food that was cooked by a goy? Can you eat food cooked by a goy? But the Sfardim are so makbid that you can't even, and their hashgachas, you have to have a Jewish cook the whole time. You can't have a goy or an Arab or whatever cooking the food. Even if you turned on the oven and even if you stirred the pot, whatever, it's not good enough. That's considered bishul akum. But again, it's only on cooked foods, as we'll see. So it's minarmi. Where do we get this from? So first, we assume it's based on a pasuk. I'll buy food from you, right? We told the goyim. Moshe said, "We'll tell the goyim we'll buy." Right? it's I'll buy the food for you. Kamayim, ma mayim shlo nishtan. Just like water hasn't been changed. You're only allowed to eat food of theirs which has not been changed, meaning it hasn't been cooked or anything like that. What happens if you have wheat kernels and you parch them? Would they also be usher, right? Just because they were changed slightly. With this if you have wheat and you burnt them, you parched them, or you singed them, mutarin. So that can't be that. It's got to be something that wasn't changed. It wasn't changed from its creation. In other words, it was the way it was created. Maybe also it's not changed from its original form. So if you parch the wheat, it's still its original form. It's just parched and burnt, but it's still its original form. Maybe that's what it means. You're only allowed to eat their food, which is not changed from its original. What happens if you have wheat and you ground it up? So it's not its original form. Right? If you made the wheat into parched corn, or you ground it up into flour or fine flour, it's mutter. So it can't be that it's got to be its original form. Elikamam maybe means this. It hasn't been changed by fire. Just like water not changed by fire. Which would be that flour that was ground up wheat would be okay. Does Gormidi doesn't say anything about fire? Doesn't say about Ella midrabanan because machta bi'alma. The answer is it's only Rabbanan, so you shouldn't come to mix with the goyim, right? You come to mix with them, and maybe they'll give you something not kosher. Maybe they'll give you their daughter or their son, whatever, in marriage. Therefore, it's only Gzeir Rabbanan, and they just made the pasuk is just an asmachta that only certain kinds of food can be eaten. Like what? Like when Bnei Yisrael said to the goyim, we'll buy the food and we'll eat and drink the water. They were talking about stuff that, like we said, it's got to be something that can be eaten raw. Even if you cooked it, it's okay as long as it's something that can be eaten raw. So an apple, if they cooked an apple, it's okay because you could eat the apple raw too. And the same thing with the carrot, and the same thing, many things that can be eaten raw. Then Bishul Akum doesn't apply. Tomorrow's Daf Islam Ches will be on the podcast, and on Sunday we'll pick it up from the bottom of tomorrow's Daf. On Lamed Ches on the base, 3 lines from down of the page, there's 2 dots there. The 2 dots, 3 dots, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. Amar Chizkiah, we'll pick it up from there. Shabbat Shalom L'Kulam.